Margaret Gelling made the case and proved that wherever you find a Wickham, not a wick, a Wickham, it is next to a Roman road. There seems to be a strong correlation between the two things. I forgot to mention that in the last video. And I concentrated in the last video on the wider picture of the Roman roads in the area. And in this one, I want to talk about the Saxon Charter of Welford. And Wickham has always been a hamlet within the parish of Welford. To talk about Welford's Saxon Charter and to see if it gives us any insight into the ancient Dark Age landscape, the post-Roman landscape, perhaps to give some sort of insight into the Roman world of the area. Now, it may or may not do this. Grundy, the old man of charters, he did hundreds of them, he solved hundreds of them, and I do use him a lot when I'm stuck. I wasn't stuck with this one. I solved it without his help. I think if you want to be good at anything, you've got to stop relying on your teacher. I did used to use his work a lot. Well, he couldn't solve this charter, and the reason why he couldn't was because he couldn't find the River Kennet, and he couldn't believe the charter. If the boundary of the estate went to the Kennet, he couldn't believe that they wouldn't have mentioned it. Well, they do sort of. I'm a bit surprised that he didn't really get this. He didn't solve it because there's a reference to what's called a sictra merde, which means the mead of the ditch. Sictra is ditch. It can also mean sort of like a stream. Which means that the boundary did go south down to the Kennet, but didn't go as far as the Kennet. It went as far as the Meadland next to the Kennet. But why didn't it say the Cunatan merde? Why did it say ditch instead of Kennet? The reason for this, and we can see this in the rock map of the 1700s, is that there's more than one channel to the Kennet, the Kennet River. In the 1700s, the northern channel, which we probably, because it's the bigger one, we probably think of as being the proper Kennet, but in the 1700s they didn't think it was. In the rock map, the southern channel is named as the Kennet. So it's very likely, because we're so conservative in this country, it's very likely that the northern channel was called something else. I think they called it the ditch next to the Kennet, which is why we have the boundary going down to the Sictra Merde. It actually says more than just Sictra Merde. It says the Sictra Merde Northerweardre, which means the northern edge, the northern side of the meadland of the ditch. So we can solve this charter, and we follow it round over to a couple of places. Kenelmstone, interesting. The Greenan Way is also interesting. That means Greenway. Now that could be the current A4, the current A4. It could even be our Ridgeway, our Roman road. But I can't narrow it down any further than that. But somewhere, hopefully in some document somewhere, I have to keep my eye out for it. There will be a reference to the Greenway that we can link it up. But this doesn't help us with Wickham. What might be of interest is that it goes up to something called the Ridgerhame. Now there is a spelling issue here. Old English for ridge has an H in front of it, and there is no H here. There is a similar word, rie, which becomes rye, but that has a Y in it, and this doesn't have a Y. I favour the ridge because topographically, I can't find a version of Rye that has an I in it. And I can find a version of ridge that doesn't have an H, and this is the compound word lindridge, which has a Y in it annoyingly, but it has no H, and it definitely means the ridge of the limes. So I think this is the harmet, the enclosure of the ridge, which should be pretty close to Wickham, maybe even Wickham. It may, and I say this very, very tentatively, it may be the enclosure that the archaeologists have discovered. I hope it is. It would be thrilling if it was. But there we go. The work that Grundy did, he suggested that the western boundary of Welford misses out Wickham. I disagree. The reason for why he said that is because there were two pits and then a quarry, and according to the map, that sort of puts it to the east of Wickham. But if you look at LiDAR using modern techniques, you can see there's pits all over the place. So just because there is nothing marked, was nothing marked on the map 100 years ago to the west, pits and quarries to the west of Wickham, doesn't mean it didn't go. I think it's Occam's razor. I think the boundary of Welford stayed pretty much the same as it always has done, which means it includes Wickham.